Good afternoon. Today we are going to be reading through chapters 5 and 6 of The Wizard of Oz. Now I know in the title it says Advanced English, but actually this is pretty easy English. There aren't too many complicated words. So as we read through this, when we find interesting vocabulary or interesting phrases, we will stop and talk about them. So if you're learning English and you want to increase your vocabulary or increase your understanding of special phrases, this is a good way to do it. And we're doing it live, so if you're watching this with me, then I encourage you to ask questions as we go, and I will stop and talk about some of the words, whatever words or phrases where you have questions. If you don't stop me, I will only pause sometimes to talk about words that I think maybe could be useful to you, or phrases that maybe you're not so familiar with. Okay. Now also, and this would be my third time trying this, I've included a link to a Discord server. So when we are finished reading through the chapters, if you want to practice live pronunciation or intonation, we can do that. Okay, but we will do that at the end, at the final part. Just go to the link in the description. It's right at the top of the description. If you don't see it, ask me. I can put it in the chat for you. And we can practice together. We can read and practice intonation and pronunciation. Okay, well, let's get started with Chapter 5 of The Wizard of Oz. And the name of the chapter is The Rescue of the Tin Woodman. Then we have the picture of people are more familiar with the movie than the book. This is just the Tin Man. That's what they would call him, the Tin Man. Tin is aluminum, another way of saying aluminum. Okay. When Dorothy awoke, the sun was shining through the trees, and Toto had long been out chasing birds and squirrels. She sat up and looked around her. There was the Scarecrow, still standing patiently in his corner, waiting for her. That's scary. So Dorothy is sleeping, and the Scarecrow is just standing in the corner waiting for her. Imagine waking up and seeing a Scarecrow looking at you while you're sleeping. Okay, let's see. We must go and search for water, she said to him. Why do you want water? He asked. To wash my face. To clean after the dust, to wash my face clean after the dust of the road, and to drink. So the dry bread will not stick to my throat. It must be inconvenient to be made of flesh. Flesh is, if you talk about meat is flesh. Meat and flesh are pretty much the same word. But we use flesh to talk about humans. You wouldn't call this meat, or maybe you would. Now people who use the internet for everything, they call the outside world, the physical world, meat space. But it's really kind of rude or a little bit disgusting to refer to people as meat. So it's better to use the word flesh when you're talking about people and talking about their physical bodies. So the Scarecrow says to Dorothy, it must be inconvenient to be made of flesh, to be made of meat. Said the Scarecrow thoughtfully. For you must sleep and eat and drink. However, you have brains, and it's worth a lot of bother to be able to think properly. They left the cottage and walked through the trees until they found a little spring of clear water, where Dorothy drank and bathed and ate her breakfast. She saw there was not much bread left in the basket, and the girl was thankful the Scarecrow did not have to eat anything, for there was scarcely enough for her and Toto for the day. Now, that word scarce is interesting. Scarce means difficult to find, not enough, not easy to find. So if you say that, let's see, in the desert, water is scarce, that means water is very difficult to find. It's not easily available. So when they say there was scarcely enough to eat, that means there really wasn't a sufficient amount of food for her and Toto. Let's read that again. The Scarecrow did not have to eat anything, and that was good because there was scarcely enough for herself and Dorothy and Toto for the day. When she had finished her meal and was about to go back to the road of yellow brick, she was startled. Now, we've seen the word start. You know the word start meaning begin, but start also means surprised. So a lot of times when we're reading these books, you'll see John started, and that doesn't mean he began. That means he was surprised. That what I imagine in my head when you see that, he started, it means like that, like surprised. And so Dorothy being startled means she was very surprised. She was startled to hear a deep groan nearby. And the word groan means, that's a groan. Do your homework. So don't groan, do your homework. I cannot imagine, replied the Scarecrow, but we can go and see. Oh, I think I missed a line. Let me do that again. What was that? She asked, timidly. To be timid is to be shy. I can't imagine, replied the Scarecrow, but we can go and see. Oh, PP says hi. Sorry, PP. I didn't see the chat. Hi. Thanks for watching. Again, maybe I don't know if you heard, but if you want to practice pronunciation or intonation when we're finished, we can try with Discord because it kind of worked this morning. Thankfully, let's try it again if you want. Okay. I cannot imagine, replied the Scarecrow, but we can go and see. Just then, another groan reached their ears, and the sound seemed to come from behind them. They turned and walked through the forest for a few steps, when Dorothy discovered something shining in a ray of sunshine that fell between the trees. She ran to the place and stopped short with a cry of surprise. One of the big trees had been partly chopped through, and standing beside it, with an uplifted axe in his hands, was a man made entirely of tin. So tin is another way of saying aluminum. Wait, I'm sure it's aluminum, but I'm just going to ask ChatGPT just to make sure. Maybe it's something special. There might be some technical difference that I don't know, but I think in regular conversation or oh, and actually ChatGPT says it's not the same thing. They're different. Okay, but the difference is, I don't know, some kind of math and numbers. So I don't know. It's not, but tin is very cheap, and it's similar to aluminum. Or maybe the other way around. I don't know. They're metals, very common metals. Oh wait, well, now that we're getting into this conversation, we might as well look at the difference. So let's see if I can find a picture of tin versus aluminum. Maybe there'll be a picture. But I know that in regular conversation, people don't know the difference. I don't know the difference. I don't care. Okay, like look at this. So you can see this picture here. Where is it? See, aluminum and tin, I mean, I really wouldn't know the difference. Except one is shiny. Doesn't matter. Okay. The Tin Man. So now they're meeting the Tin Man. Where did it go? One of the big trees had been partly chopped through, and standing beside it with an uplifted axe in his hands was a man made entirely of tin. His head and arms and legs were jointed upon his body, but he stood perfectly motionless, as if he could not stir at all. The word stir here just means move. He couldn't move. So he stood perfectly motionless, as if he could not move, as if he could not stir at all. Dorothy looked at him in amazement, and so did the Scarecrow, while Toto barked sharply and made a snap at the legs, which hurt his teeth. When a dog does this, like very quickly, not biting, but just that's snapping. A dog snapping at you. A cat, any animal can snap at you. And this is really snapping. That's snapping. But when an animal goes very quickly, not actually biting, but just doing that motion with their mouth, that's snapping. Scarecrow, while Toto barked and made a snap at the tin legs. So Toto went at the legs, which hurt his teeth. Oh, so he actually bit the Tin Man. Yes, answered the Tin Man, I did. I've been groaning for more than a year, and no one has ever hurt me before or come to help me. What can I do for you? She inquired softly. To inquire means to ask about something, to make a question about something. So what can I do for you? She made the question. That's what it means. She inquired. She made the question. Insider Tech says, I'm watching 1984. Exactly what I'm looking for. Thank you very much. This book is so hard for me. But with your help, I was able to understand plus 90%. Oh, that's wonderful news. I'm glad that it's helping you. I'm starting a new thing, Insider Tech. We're using Discord. We just did it for the first time this morning successfully. So we're using Discord at the end. If you want help with your pronunciation or intonation, I'm inviting at least one person to join me to read some of the lines, and we can practice pronunciation issues and maybe talk a little bit more about vocabulary if things are unclear. So if you want to be that person, the link is in the description. What can I do for you? She inquired softly, for she was moved by the sad voice in which the man spoke. PP says, what means softly? It means quietly or something else. Let's see. If you speak softly, yes, that means quietly. That means like very, very quiet and not very strong. It's kind of the opposite of strong. So because she's a little girl, what can I do for you? So she's just a little girl. It just means quietly here. So what can I do for you? She inquired softly. So she made the question in a very weak, quiet way. For she was moved by the sad voice in which the man spoke. Now, when to be moved, okay, you know the verb move. Move it. But to be moved, that's a feeling, that's a sensation. When something moves you, it touches your heart. It makes you feel sad. Maybe it makes you want to cry, or it makes you want to feel sympathy. So Dorothy felt moved by the sad voice of the Tin Man. The sad voice of the Tin Man touched her heart. It moved her. She was moved by the sad voice in which the man spoke. "Get an oil can and oil my joints," he answered. "They're rusted so badly that I cannot move them at all. If I am well oiled, I shall soon be all right again. You'll find the oil can on a shelf in my cottage." Dorothy at once, and that phrase "at once" means immediately. Dorothy immediately ran back to the cottage. Dorothy at once ran back to the cottage and found the oil can. And then she returned and asked anxiously, "Where are your joints?" Now, by the way, I think we have to define this word joints, because if you know the word join, you know, what does join mean? Join means two things come together. So joints, person joints. Let's see if we can find a picture that will help. So joints are all the places where things are connected on the body. See all the joints? This is a joint. This is a joint. This is a joint. This. You get the idea. It's the place where things are connected. Those are joints. And the Tin Man is saying, "Oil my joints. Put oil in my joints." Dorothy at once ran back to the cottage and found the oil can, and then she returned and asked anxiously, "Where are your joints?" "Oil my neck first," replied the Tin Woodman. So she oiled it, and it was quite badly rusted. The Scarecrow took hold of the tin head and moved it gently from side to side. Moved it from side to side until it worked freely, and then the man could turn himself. "Now oil the joints in my arms." And Dorothy oiled them, and the Scarecrow bent them carefully until they were quite free from rust and as good as new. The Tin Man gave a sigh. That's a sigh. The Tin Man gave a sigh of satisfaction. So he felt good. So he said, "Whew, that's a sigh of satisfaction." The Tin Woodman gave a sigh of satisfaction and lowered his axe, which leaned against the tree. "This is a great comfort," he said. "I've been holding that axe in the air ever since I'm rusted, and I'm glad to be able to put it down at last. Now, if you'll oil the joints in my legs, I shall be all right once more." So they oiled his legs until he could move them freely, and he thanked them again and again for his release, for he seemed a very polite creature and very grateful. "I might have stood there always if you had not come along," he said, "so you have certainly saved my life. How did you happen to be here?" We're on our way to the Emerald City to see the Great Oz," she answered, "and we stopped at your cottage to pass the night." "Why do you wish to see Oz?" he asked. "I want him to send me back to Kansas, and the Scarecrow wants him to put a few brains into his head," she replied. The Tin Woodman appeared to think deeply for a moment, and then he said, "Do you suppose Oz could give me a heart?" "Why, I guess so," answered Dorothy. "It would be as easy as to give the Scarecrow brains." Okay, so here we have Dorothy and the Tin Man and the Scarecrow. "True," the Tin Woodman returned. "So, If you will... Oh, what is that word? If you will allow me to join your party, I will also go to the Emerald City and can ask Oz to help me. Come along, said the Scarecrow heartily. Heartily means big, strong, healthy. So the Scarecrow said it in a very big way, a very sincere way. Come along, not come along. He said, come along, with a lot of enthusiasm. That's what it means here. Come along, the Scarecrow said heartily, and Dorothy added, you may think of that. I don't know if that's really the origin of the word, but you can maybe say that he said it with his heart, like in a very sincere, strong way. Come along. And Dorothy added that she would be pleased to have his company. So the Tin Woodman shouldered his axe, and they all passed through the forest until they came to the road that was paved with yellow brick. The Tin Woodman had asked Dorothy to put the oil in her basket. For, he said, if I should get caught in the rain and rust again, I would need the oil can badly. It was a bit of good luck to have their new comrade join the party, for soon after they had begun their journey, again they came to a place where the trees and branches grew so thick over the road and the travelers could not pass. But the Tin Woodman set to work with his axe and chopped so well that soon he cleared a passage for the entire party. PP says, what does deeply mean? I heard it in a lot of English. What's the difference between deeply and deeper? Well, first of all, deeper is for comparisons. So the ocean is deeper than the lake. That's the comparison form of the word deep. But you know the word deep, right? And deeply means like deep. Well, first of all, it's an adverb. So you use it with actions. She felt it deeply. He meant it deeply. The word deeply goes with a verb. It tells you how you. It describes how you do the verb, and it means deep inside of you. In this case, it could mean other things probably, but in this context, it means deep inside of you. Where was that? So she did an action that came from deep inside of her heart, I think. Where was the word deeply? It was a bit of good luck, comrade, party, journey, branches, travelers, Tin Woodman, axe, clear passage. Where is it? Come along, heartily, added, pleased. Oh, I can't find it. I remember seeing it, but I don't know where it is. I'm sorry. But when you, if you say something deeply, it means it comes from deep inside of you, from your heart, maybe. It's probably how it was used. I don't remember which phrase it was. Dorothy was thinking so earnestly. Now, to be earnest means to be very, very concentrated or very ready for something. Oh, actually, I want to check. I better check the definition. I don't trust my definition. Let's see, earnest. Showing sincere or intense conviction. So very in a strong way. Let's say it's like strong here. Dorothy was thinking in a very strong way, thinking very much. Dorothy was thinking so earnestly as they walked along, and she did not notice when the Scarecrow stumbled into a hole. Okay, let me show you. Stumble is a pretty interesting word. Let's see if we can find a picture of stumbling. Okay. When you stumble, it's usually because of an object. Can we find anything with an object? They have a lot of pictures of stumbling, but I guess they won't. Okay, well, let me... I guess this is probably the best way to think of it. Okay, here's a picture of stumble, or an animation of stumble. So stumbling is maybe not walking very well, but also falling over, just like this baby. But usually there's like an object that makes you do that. You say, I stumbled over a rock. That's stumbling. Dorothy was thinking so earnestly as they walked along. She did not notice when the Scarecrow stumbled into a hole and rolled over to the side of the road. Indeed, he was obliged to call her to help him up again. Why didn't you walk around the hole? Asked the Tin Woodman. I don't know enough, replied the Scarecrow cheerfully. My head is stuffed with straw. You know, and that's why I'm going to Oz to ask him for some brains. Oh, I see, said the Tin Woodman. But after all, brains are not the best things in the world. Have you any? Inquired the Scarecrow. So remember, inquire means making a question. So you could rephrase that. The Scarecrow asked. So do you have any brains? The Scarecrow asked. Do you have any brains? Inquired the Scarecrow. Have you any brains? Inquired the Scarecrow. No, my head is quite empty, answered the Woodman. But once I had brains and a heart also. But once I had brains and a heart also. So having tried them both, I should much rather have a heart. And why is that? Asked the Scarecrow. So the Tin Man is saying, no, I don't have a brain. Before, in the past, I had a brain and a heart. And now I don't have a brain or a heart. But if I had a choice, if I could choose, I would definitely choose a heart and not a brain. And now the Scarecrow is saying, well, why do you prefer to have a heart and not a brain? I will tell you my story, and then you will know. So, while they were walking through the forest, the Tin Woodman told the following story. I was born the son of a woodman who chopped down trees in the forest. PP is saying, is brain and mind the same? Not really, because sometimes people might use them interchangeably. But the difference, the brain is something physical. So here, let's take a look at a picture of a brain, although I'm sure you already know what it looks like. So here's a picture. You see, you can make a picture of a brain. There's a picture of a brain right there. See it? But you cannot take a picture of the mind. The mind is something you can't touch. The mind is something you can't explain. PP, where are you? Are you in Morocco? I get confused of all the people, but are you, which country are you in? I don't remember. Because I wonder, probably, because maybe in your language there's no concept of that. It's possible, but actually I was just listening to a lecture that they were, I don't know if it's true, but they were saying there's no concept of mind in the German language. So maybe some languages don't have that concept. But the brain you can see and you can touch, but the mind you can't. The mind is something that you cannot see and you cannot touch. It's like the soul of the brain, if that makes any sense. Oh, Saudi Arabia. So in Arabic, do they make a difference between the physical thing, the thing that you can touch, the brain, and like the spirit or the soul of the brain, something you cannot see, you cannot touch. I was born the son of a woodman who chopped trees in the forest and sold the wood for a living. When I grew up, I too became a wood chopper, and after my father died, I took care of my old mother as long as she lived. And then I made up my mind that instead of living alone, I would marry, so that I might not become lonely. There was one of the Munchkin girls who was so beautiful that I soon grew to love her with all my heart. She, on her part, promised to marry me as soon as I could earn money enough to build a better house for her. So I set to work harder than ever, but the girl lived with an old woman who did not want her to marry anyone. For she was so lazy, she wished the girl to remain with her and do the cooking and the housework. So the old woman went to the Wicked Witch of the East and promised her 2 sheep and a cow if she would prevent the marriage. Thereupon, the Wicked Witch enchanted my axe. So that means the witch put some magic on the axe. The Wicked Witch enchanted my axe. And when I was chopping away at my best one day, for I was anxious to get a new house and my wife as soon as possible, the axe slipped all at once and cut off my leg. This at first seemed a great misfortune, for I knew a one-legged man could not do very well as a wood chopper. So I went to a tinsmith. You know that word smith, which is a very common last name, what that means, that has a meaning, and that's a person who works with metal things. That's what smith means. So a tinsmith is like an expert working with tin. So I went to a tinsmith and I had him make me a new leg out of tin. The leg worked very well once I was used to it. But my action angered the Wicked Witch of the East, for she had promised the old woman that I should not marry the pretty Munchkin girl. When I began chopping again, my axe slipped and cut off my right leg. Again, I went to the tinner, and again he made me a leg out of tin. And after this, the enchanted axe cut off my arms, one after the other. But nothing daunted. To be daunted, I don't know if you know the word discouraged, but daunted and discouraged are similar words. So if something daunts you, if something is daunting, it means it's discouraging, it's not easy, it's something that pushes you away. So he's saying nothing daunted, nothing stopped me, nothing prevented me, nothing discouraged me. I continued chopping down trees. I had them replaced with the tin ones. The Wicked Witch then made the axe slip and cut off my head. And at first I thought that was the end of me, but the tinner happened to come along, and he made me a new head out of tin. I thought I had beaten the Wicked Witch. You know, wicked means evil. I thought I had beaten the Wicked Witch, and I worked harder than ever. But I little knew how cruel my enemy could be. She thought of a new way to kill me, to kill my love for the beautiful Munchkin maiden, and made my axe slip again, so that it cut right through my body, splitting me into 2 halves. Once more the tinner came to my help, and made me a body of tin, fastening. Fastening means like connecting. But this is connecting, but fastening is more, something maybe like this, or maybe something like this, some way of connecting things in a more complicated way. Do you know if you have a shirt with buttons, you fasten your shirt, you fasten your the buttons on your shirt. If you're on an airplane, it says fasten your seatbelt. It's like a connection. Splitting me into two halves. Once more the tinner came to my help and made me a body of tin, fastening my tin arms and legs and head to it by means of joints, so that I could move around as well as ever. But alas means like in the end. I think it's always a negative. Wait, let's ask ChatGPT if it's always a negative. It kind of means finally, or in the end. It isn't a word that you would use in conversational English. You probably only would see it when you're reading something. It's an exclamation used to express sorrow, regret, or disappointment. Yeah, it's mostly used in books. So it means like in the end, or it's a way of just saying that you feel bad. It's a very dramatic word. It's not something that you should use in conversation. People will think you're crazy if you go around saying, alas. But alas, I had now no heart. So that I lost all my love for the Munchkin girl and did not care whether I married her or not. I suppose she's still living with the old woman, waiting for me to come after her. My body shone so brightly. The word shine, which means giving light or reflecting light, I think most of the time you would conjugate that in a regular way. Shine, shined, shined. But it's also possible to use the irregular form shone. And that's how they're doing it here. But that's not so, well, maybe it's 50-50. Some people might say shone. I think I prefer shined. But my body shone so brightly in the sun that I felt very proud of it. And it did not matter now if my axe slipped, for it could not cut me. There was only one danger, that my joints would rust. But I kept an oil can in my cottage, and took care to oil myself whenever I needed it. However, there came a day when I forgot to do this, and, being caught in a rainstorm, before I thought of the danger my joints had rusted, and I was left to stand in the woods until you came to help me. It was a terrible thing to undergo. To undergo something means to experience something, but you only use it for bad things. He underwent surgery. That means he experienced surgery. He experienced that process. So any kind of process that's difficult. But during the year I stood there, I had time to think that the greatest loss I had known was the loss of my heart. While I was in love, I was the happiest man on earth. But no one could ever love who has not a heart. And so I'm resolved to ask Oz to give me one. If he does, I will go back to the Munchkin Maiden and marry her. Both Dorothy and the Scarecrow had been greatly interested in the story of the Tin Woodman, and now they knew why he was so anxious to get a new heart. All the same, said the Scarecrow, I shall ask for brains instead of a heart, for a fool would not know what to do with a heart if he had one. I shall take the heart, returned the Tin Woodman, for brains do not make one happy, and happiness is the best thing in the world. Dorothy did not say anything, for she was puzzled. To be puzzled means to be confused. So Dorothy did not say anything, for she was confused. She was puzzled to know which of her two friends was right. And she decided if she could only get back to Kansas and Aunt Em, it did not matter so much whether the Woodman had no brains and the Scarecrow no heart, or each got what he wanted. What worried her most was that the bread was nearly gone. And another meal for herself and Toto would empty the basket. To be sure, neither the woodman nor the scarecrow ever ate anything. But she was not made of tin, nor straw, and could not live unless she was fed. All right, so that was the end of chapter 5. Let's keep going. These chapters are pretty short, so we're doing 2 chapters. Here's chapter 6, The Cowardly Lion. If you don't know the word coward, that is the opposite of brave. Oh, he's very brave, but he's a coward. So that's somebody who isn't brave. It's the opposite of brave. The Cowardly Lion. So this is a lion who is not brave, which is unusual. All lions are very brave, except for this one. He's a coward. All this time, Dorothy and her companions had been walking through the thick woods. The road was still paved with yellow brick, but there was so much covered by dry branches and dead leaves from the trees, and the walking was not at all good. PP says, Courage the Cowardly Dog, cartoon famous. I think I remember that. Was it? I don't know if I ever watched that, but I remember that title. Is that from the 90s? The 1990s? I think it is. That's how I remember it, but I don't think I ever watched it. There were few birds in this part of the forest, for birds love the open country where there is plenty of sunshine. But now and then there came a deep growl. A growl is the sound of an angry animal. Like a dog. A dog growls. So, but now and then, so now and then that means sometimes. Now and then there came a deep growl from some wild animal hidden in the trees. These sounds made the little girl's heart beat fast, for she did not know what made them. But Toto knew, and he walked close to Dorothy's side, and did not even bark in return. Americans love the word pretty so much. Wait, okay, I remember your name because of the hieroglyphics. Well, I remember you because of the hieroglyphics, but I forgot your name. Oh my God, what is your name? I can't remember. I'm sorry. Can you tell me your name again? I forgot what it was. Americans love the word. Where did they use the word pretty? Did they just use it? How, let's see. How were they using the word pretty here? Rama, that's right. Okay, sorry. Maybe this time I'll remember. Rama, hieroglyphics, Rama. I'll try to make that association in my brain, or in my mind. But now and then there came, so I don't see the word pretty. You're right, but you know, pretty usually just means either beautiful, or it could mean something like very, something similar to very. I think those are the only two ways that you would use pretty. These sounds made the little girl's heart beat fast, for she did not know what made them. But Toto knew, and he walked close to Dorothy's side and did not even bark in return. How long will it be, the child asked of the Tin Woodman, before we're out of the forest? I cannot tell, was the answer, for I've never been to the Emerald City, but my father went there once when I was a boy, and he said it was a long journey through a dangerous country, although nearer to the city where Oz dwells. By the way, Rama, if you're interested, so far nobody has expressed any interest, but if you're interested, there's a link to a Discord server, And when we're finished reading the chapter, if there are any volunteers who want to practice intonation or pronunciation, we can practice reading a few paragraphs and just really focusing on pronunciation or intonation as we go. So if you want to be that volunteer, there's a link to the Discord server in the description. My father went there once when I was a boy, and he said it was a long journey through a dangerous country. Although nearer to the city where Oz dwells, the word dwell means to live, but it doesn't mean to live. It's not the opposite of dead. It means the place where you live. So another word for house or apartment is dwelling. That's a place where somebody lives. So let's see. The city of Oz dwells. Let me read that sentence again. Although nearer to the city where Oz dwells, so the place where Oz lives, the place not where it's not the opposite of death, it's just the place where he lives, is beautiful. But I'm not afraid. So long as I have my oil can, nothing can hurt the scarecrow, while you bear upon your forehead the mark of the good witch's kiss, and that will protect you from harm. But Toto, said the girl anxiously, what will protect him? We must protect ourselves. If he's in danger, replied the Tin Woodman. Just as he spoke, there came from the forest a terrible roar. The roar, that's the sound of a lion. Roar. That's a roar. Uh-oh, I just hurt my throat. That's the sound of a lion. PP says you're a pretty perfect teacher. Oh, thank you. That's a very kind thing to say. Let's see. With one blow of it... Wait, I think I missed something. Just as he spoke, there came from the forest a terrible roar. And the next moment, a great lion bounded into the road. That just means he ran. He ran into the road. With one blow of his paw. Blow means hit here. With one hit of his paw. Paw, it means hand, but for animals. So one blow of his hand, but it's a paw because he's an animal. With one blow of his paw, he sent the scarecrow spinning over and over the edge of the road. So he hit the scarecrow. One blow, one hit of his paw, of his hand. Spinning over the edge of the road. And then he struck. Strike means hit also. And then he hit the Tin Woodman. And then he struck the Tin Woodman with his sharp claws. So the paw is like the hand, but the claws are these. This just the tip here. Sharp. Those are the claws. But, to the lion's surprise, he could make no impression on the tin, although the woodman fell over in the road and lay still. Little Toto, now that had been an enemy to face, ran barking toward the lion, and the great beast had opened... Okay, and then we have the picture of the cowardly lion. Here's the scarecrow laying on the road, and Toto barking. There's the Tin Man. His mouth to bite the dog, when Dorothy, fearing Toto would be killed, and heedless of danger, to heed something means to listen carefully. So you could say, heed my words, and that means listen very carefully to my words. Heed my advice. Listen very carefully to my advice. And so heedless means not listening. It means not listening to something important. Heedless of danger. Toto was not afraid. He wasn't listening to the danger. He should be, but he's not. So Dorothy, fearing Toto would be killed, and heedless of danger. Dorothy is heedless of danger. Dorothy is ignoring danger. heedless of danger, rushed forward and slapped the lion upon his nose as hard as she could. And while she cried out, "Don't you dare bite Toto. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, a big beast like you, to bite a poor little dog." "I didn't bite him," said the lion as he rubbed his nose with his paw. Remember, paw is a hand, but for an animal like a dog or a lion. He rubbed his nose with his paw where Dorothy hit it. "No, but you tried to," she retorted. "You're nothing but a big coward." "I know it," said the lion, hanging his head in shame. "I've always known it. But how can I help it?" "I don't know, I'm sure. To think of your striking," remember, striking means hitting. "To think of your striking the stuffed man, like the poor scarecrow." PP says spinning and whirling, swirling and twirling are the same. Well, spinning, if you say spinning, I just picture something moving in a circle. But if you say whirling, I picture, let's see. Right, you said whirling, right? Whirling. I think it's easier to show a picture than to try to describe it. So now spinning just means moving in a circle. That's all I think of when I think of the word spinning. But then when I think of the word whirling, I think of something more like this. So it's kind of like going from big to small, or from going, if it's 3 dimensions, maybe big to small, like that, something like that. So it's not just moving in a circle, but also getting big and small. And then swirl. Oh, let's see what kind of pictures. Swirl, I think, could be very similar to the picture we just looked at. Wait, let me get another word here. Yeah, I mean, you see the same thing, except it could be not so organized, maybe. Whoops. Let me try that again. So when you see a swirl, it could be a little bit less organized than a whirl. Or maybe not, but you can see here, if you want to use the word swirl, it's more of a less organized movement, if that makes any sense. And what was the other word? Twirl. And twirl is the action of making something move in that direction. So you twirl something, you're making it do this. And that's as much as I can think of about that. But you're right, they're all very similar words. Very, very similar. And I think that sometimes they could be used interchangeably, and it wouldn't matter too much. Nobody's going to correct you and say, "You're using the wrong one." There's just little differences. And they're not important. Not very important at all. "Is he stuffed?" asked the lion in surprise as he watched her pick up the scarecrow and set him upon his feet. She patted him into shape again. So the scarecrow, he's made of straw. So she's doing this, making him look better, making him look even, like a pillow. "Of course he's stuffed," replied Dorothy, who was still angry. "That's why he went over so easily," remarked the lion. "It astonished me." Astonished means surprised. "It surprised me. It astonished me to see him whirl around so..." Oh, we have the word whirl now. So whirl. Whoa. To see him whirl around so. "Is the other one stuffed also?" "No," said Dorothy. "He's made of tin." And she helped the woodman up again. "That's why he nearly blunted my claws," said the lion. When they scratched against the tin, it made a cold shiver run down my back. What's the little animal you're so tender of? He's my dog, Toto, answered Dorothy. Is he made of tin or stuffed? Asked the lion. Neither. He's a meat dog. So there, see, really, she should be saying he's made of flesh, because a dog isn't something you would typically eat. When you talk about meat, that's usually referring to something that you eat. And then earlier we were talking about the word flesh. And here it sounds funny that she says he's a meat dog. That has a funny sound to it. So that's probably why they chose that. But really, you should be using the word flesh here. He's made of flesh. Neither. He's she can't think of the right word. She's saying a meat dog. Said the girl. Oh, he's a curious animal. You know, you probably know the word curious, meaning you want to know answers, you want to ask questions. But curious can also be used as a synonym for strange. And that's how they're using it here. He's a strange dog. He's a curious animal. He's a strange animal. So the lion has never seen a dog before. And he's saying, oh, that's very strange. Whoops. Sorry. Technical difficulties. Okay. All right. Oh, he's a curious animal. He's a strange animal and seems remarkably small now that I look at him. No one would think of biting such a little thing except a coward like me, continued the lion sadly. What makes you a coward? Asked Dorothy, looking at the great beast in wonder. For he was so big as a small horse. For he was as big as a small horse. It's a mystery, replied the lion. I suppose I was born that way. All the other animals in the forest naturally expect me to be brave, for the lion is everywhere thought to be a king of beasts. I learned that if I roared very loudly, every living thing was frightened and got out of my way. Whenever I met a man, I've been awfully scared, but I just roared at him, and he has always run away as fast as he could go. If the elephants and tigers and the bears had ever tried to fight me, I should have run myself. I'm such a coward. But just as soon as they hear me roar, they all try to get away from me, and of course, I let them go. But that isn't right. The king of beasts shouldn't be a coward, said the scarecrow. I know it. Rama's asking, why is there perceptibly difference between English and novels and movies? Well, movies try to recreate conversational English, but books tend to be more descriptive and have a tendency to, because, you know, you don't have to be very creative if you're making a movie, because you have the assistance of looking and seeing the pictures. But if you're writing a book, you have to use many more words to try to create an image in a person's head. So that's why there's a tendency to use a lot more vocabulary in a book compared to a movie. Does that make sense? I know it, returned the lion, wiping a tear from his eye with the tip of his tail. It's my great sorrow, and makes my life very unhappy. But whenever there's danger in my heart begins to beat fast. Perhaps you have heart disease, said the Tin Woodman. It may be. If you have, continued the Tin Woodman, you ought to be glad, for it proves you have a heart. For my part, I have no heart, so I cannot have heart disease. Perhaps, said the Lion thoughtfully, if I had no heart, I should not be a coward. Have you brains? Asked the Scarecrow. I suppose so. I never looked to see, replied the Lion. Well, I'm going to the Great Oz to ask him to give me some, remarked the Scarecrow, for my head is stuffed with straw. And am I going to ask him to give me a heart? And I'm going to ask him to give me a heart, said the Woodman. And I'm going to ask him to send Toto and me back to Kansas, added Dorothy. Do you think Oz could give me courage? Asked the cowardly Lion. Just as easily as he could give me brains, said the Scarecrow. Or give me a heart, said the Tin Woodman. Or send me back to Kansas, said Dorothy. Then, if you don't mind, I'll go with you, said the Lion. For my life is simply unbearable without a bit of courage. Something unbearable means you cannot tolerate something. You cannot manage something. He's saying my life is unbearable. I cannot manage my life without courage. I can't tolerate my life without courage. You'll be very welcome, answered Dorothy, for you will help keep away the other wild beasts. It seems to me they must be more cowardly than you are, if they allow you to scare them so easily. They really are, said the Lion, but that doesn't make me any braver. And as long as I know myself to be a coward, I shall be unhappy. So once more, the little company set off upon the journey, the Lion walking with stately strides. Stately, that means like a king or like a president or something like that. Somebody very important. And stride is the way you move when you walk. So when the Lion's walking, he walks like a king. He moves like a king. Stately stride. PP says, what does it mean when you have ly at the end of a word? Well, you have to know the difference between an adjective and an adverb. I don't like to use fancy words, but that's kind of answering the question. An adjective will describe a noun. A noun is a person or a place or a thing. So if you have the word sad, you can describe a thing with the word sad. Sad girl, that's a person. Sad city, that's a place. Sad TV program, that's a thing. So an adjective form describes a person, a place, or a thing. But when you put ly after it, this describes an action. That's an adverb. So she talked sadly. The talked is not a person, a place, or a thing. It's an action. So you have to use the adverb form. She talked sadly. He walked sadly. So that the ly is the form for describing actions. Is that pretty clear? She spoke softly. That means we're talking about speak. We're describing speak, which is not a thing, it's not a person, it's not a place, it's an action. So we have to use the description form for an action. She spoke softly. She spoke. Did I just say she spoke? She spoke softly. Okay, does that make sense? Is that pretty clear what the difference is? So an adjective, soft, describes a thing. Soft pillow, soft bed, soft bread. And softly is for an action. She spoke softly. He walked softly. So once more the little company set off upon the journey, the lion walking with stately stride. So stride, that's like the way you move when you're walking. And stately means like a king. So the lion was moving and walking like a king at Dorothy's side. Toto did not approve of this new comrade at first, for he could not forget how nearly he had been crushed between the lion's great jaws. But after a time, he became more at ease. To be at ease, to feel at ease, means to feel comfortable, to feel more comfortable. So at first, Toto did not like the lion. But as they continued walking, Toto became more at ease. He became more comfortable. And presently, Toto and the Cowardly Lion had grown to be good friends. During the rest of that day, there was no other adventure to mar the peace of the journey. Once, indeed, the Tin Woodman stepped upon a beetle that was crawling along the road and killed the poor little thing. This made the Tin Woodman very unhappy, for he was always careful not to hurt any living creature. And as he walked along, wept several tears of sorrow and regret. These tears ran. So this is interesting because they're walking along the road, and the Tin Woodman steps on a beetle. A beetle is an insect, in case you don't know. I'll show you a picture of a beetle. Remember, the Tin Man doesn't have a heart. This is a beetle. That's a beetle. So they're walking along the road, and the Tin Man steps on a beetle and kills the beetle, and he's very sad, and he's thinking about it the entire way. He thinks he doesn't have a heart, but obviously he must have a heart if he feels sad that he stepped on the beetle. Would you feel sad if you stepped on a beetle? I don't think I would step on a beetle on purpose, but I don't think I would feel sad. Maybe I don't have a heart. Okay. Now again, when we finish this chapter, if somebody wants to volunteer to do some pronunciation or speaking practice with the words that we're using, there's a link to the Discord server, and you can join me. And I need a volunteer. And I'm not just talking to YouTube, I'm also talking to the people watching on Rumble. I see you. Somebody volunteer. We're getting close to the end. All right, so the Tin Woodman was very unhappy, for he was always careful not to hurt any living creature. And as he walked along, he wept. Weeping is crying, and is an irregular verb, so the past is wept. He cried. He wept. Tears of sorrow and regret. These tears ran slowly down his face, over the hinges of his jaw, and there they rusted. When Dorothy presently asked him a question, the Tin Woodman could not open his mouth, for his jaws were tightly rusted together. He became greatly frightened. At this, and made many motions to Dorothy to relieve him. So he's crying, and that's making his joints rust. And now he's telling Dorothy that he needs oil. But she could not understand. The lion was also puzzled. Remember, puzzled means confused. Also puzzled to know what was wrong. But the Scarecrow seized. To seize something means to take it. Take something. He seized it. He took it without permission. He took it. He seized it. The lion was also puzzled to know what was wrong, but the Scarecrow seized the oil can, so he took the oil can from Dorothy's basket and oiled the Woodman's jaws. These are the jaws. So he put some oil, so that after a few moments he could talk as well as before. So here's the Scarecrow oiling the jaws of the Tin Man. "This will serve me a lesson," said he, "to look where I step. For if I should kill another bug or beetle, I should surely cry again, and crying rusts my jaw so that I cannot speak." Thereafter he walked. Thereafter he walked very carefully with his eyes on the road, and when he saw a tiny ant toiling means working hard. When he saw a tiny ant working very hard, when he saw a tiny ant toiling by, he would step over it so as not to harm it. Harm means hurt. The Tin Woodman knew very well he had no heart, and therefore he took great care never to be cruel or unkind to anything. "You people with hearts," he said, "have something to guide you, and need never do wrong. But I have no heart, so I must be very careful. When Oz gives me a heart, of course, I needn't mind so much." All right. Well, that was the PP says, "Is puzzle a game?" Yes, puzzle is a game. But let me see something here. Let me show you something. So nobody wants to practice talking or pronunciation with this because we're at the end of the chapter now. So that means we'll finish here if nobody wants to practice, which is fine. Let's see. I'm looking for a good picture. Okay, let's look at this picture for a minute. Okay, so imagine if you get Rama says toiling is fatigue. No, fatigue means tired. Fatigue means feeling very tired. Toiling means working very hard. So you're in Egypt. So if you can say you're toiling under the hot sun. That means you're working very hard under the hot sun. And we can understand how you're suffering by using toiling and hot sun. So imagine you get a new puzzle like this. How do you feel when you look at it? You think, "Oh my God, where do I start? What do I do?" That's why puzzled means confused, because you have to imagine a picture like this, where you see everything and you don't even know where to start, how to organize everything. And that's why to be puzzled means to be very confused. Okay, well, so that was the end of the chapter. So nobody wants to practice? Nobody wants to practice pronunciation and intonation? Okay. Going. Last time, last offer. No volunteers? All right. All right, well, thank you for watching, and thank you for your questions, and I hope you come back when we go through Chapter 7 and Chapter 8 of The Wizard of Oz. I will see you next time. Goodbye.